Hi, everyone. We are in Mark chapter 14, verses 26 through 31. We've been in Mark 14 for some time now. I'm going to be in there for another few days because there's a lot of things that are happening in that chapter. Matter of fact, Mark is pretty famous for the descriptions that he gives and the storytelling that he gives on Good Friday, and that's what chapter 14 is about. And Good Friday is the Friday Jesus is arrested. He does a lot of things. This is where he prays in the garden. This is where he institutes the Lord's Supper. He calls out Judas. And in our text today is where he explains to Peter that Peter's going to deny him as well. And Peter has a very different reaction than Judas did when he was called out. And Peter says, "Look, I will lay my life down for you." It's also the beginning of another Mark and sandwich because Peter's denial gets brought up. We will have several things happening before we get to the conclusion of that story where we actually read about Peter denying Jesus in front of a bunch of people and carrying guilt from that as well. Much has been made about when you compare and contrast Peter's denial and Judas's betrayal. So I don't want you to spend your time doing that in this devotion that you're listening to right now, but you can certainly look it up and spend some time thinking about that. Uh, what I want to do is draw some illustration here. I know as a kid, one of my favorite TV shows was Scooby-Doo, and I'm pretty excited that now that my kids are kids, they've been doing some revitalizing of this show. But there was a pretty familiar pattern with how this happened. You're always introduced to some spooky space or some spooky house or something like this, and the gang walks up, and you're always greeted by a really nice janitor or a really nice doorman or a really nice owner of a business or something. And throughout the rest of the episode, you realize that there's some kind of, say, a haunting, for lack of better words, where a villain, a witch, a ghoul, a goblin, something is terrorizing usually a place of business because he wants to shut it down or she wants to shut it down. And at the end, the gang spends the entire episode trying to catch whoever it is because they don't really believe in the ghost stuff. And they pull the mask off of who's dressing up as that person, and it's always that nice guy that they met at the beginning. There's also a book that my kids used to love me reading, and it's a fun book. It's called The Monster at the End of This Book, and it's Sesame Street's Grover, who is just begging you on every single page, don't turn the page, because every time you turn the page, we get closer to the end of the book, and at the end of the book, there's a monster there. And you just build up this intensity with each page turn. And at the very end, it's revealed that Grover's the actual monster at the end of that book. Now, I say this because I think that's what we see on Good Friday, and specifically what we see in Peter's story is on Good Friday, who's the villain? Who's the villain? It's really easy for us to say, well, Judas is the villain. Well, the Pharisees are the villains. Well, even Peter's somewhat of a villain. But the real answer is we are the villains. We are the reason why Good Friday is necessary. And Good Friday is necessary so that we can have Easter Sunday. And so when we read Peter's story of the denial of Jesus, or at least the calling out of the denial of Jesus, I think that it's important that we read of our story. And maybe we haven't flat out denied Jesus, but our behavior and our attitudes have sometimes denied this faith. Our words and our actions have sometimes denied this faith. Our refusal to step in faith have sometimes demonstrated denial. And so read Peter's story and just ask yourself, how do I fit in this? And I really do hope that you spend some time today just thinking about this and made this passage just sort of ring around in your head. You guys have a blessed day. We'll talk to you soon.